So a college student creates an AI program. The university loves it, but 6 months later, the university suspends them. My name is Dr. Jason Robinson, and I am the unapologetic professor. Today, we're going to talk about the curious case of Mr. Benjamin Craver, a student at Emory University in Atlanta. Now, before I get started with any of this, I'm just going to put these disclaimers out. I don't work for Emory. I'm not a lawyer. Disclaimer, disclaimer, disclaimer. What I really want to talk about is I want to talk about what the news has reported versus the facts that are alleged in the lawsuit. And again, I'm not a lawyer, but I can read. And I also can read between the lines. So it's a long, winding tale that's kind of gotten us to this point. But the key take home that I want to kind of give you, the deliverable, if you will, is when you read stories, especially about AI, you definitely need to read between the lines and always, always, always go back and take a moment and look at the source material. Now, let's get started in 2023. Mr. Benjamin Craver is a student at Emory University. And again, all this is coming out of the 26-page lawsuit, which I will link in the description below. So Mr. Craver is a student at Emory University, and he meets up with another student, and together they come up with an app called 8Ball. And what 8Ball does is 8Ball takes student-submitted work, and it will use AI to generate flashcards and apparently other study materials that the students can use to help them through the class. All well and good. They actually take it to a pitch competition. They win the pitch competition in $10,000. So over the course of the spring semester, all the way into kind of the spring semester of 2022 into the fall semester of 2023, it seems like everything is great and everything is going really, really well. Now, around about November of 2023 is when things really start to kind of go a little bit off the rails. So for background, Mr. Craver is not tech savvy. That's something that is alleged. We'll not say tech savvy, but he doesn't have the technical acumen to write the AI code, which goes on to unknown student number one. So I don't have a nickname for him yet, but we'll just call him unknown student number one. So Mr. Craver and unknown student number one, things are going really well. Emory is the school paper is writing stories about it. They have professors that are talking about this amazing new AI application called 8Ball. Students can come in, or they can go to 8Ball's private server. Hold on to that, because the private server part is very important. They can go into they can upload documents to the private server, and after, I guess it does its thing, they get flashcards, other study materials based off of the work that they themselves have submitted to 8Ball. So around about October 2023, according to the lawsuit, is where things get a little weird. So Emory's two departments at IT start to see these token access requests from an unknown third party. Now, in my online laboratory sections, we use a third-party application that can interface with our learning management system. Now, the learning management system, for those of you that don't know or are kind of new to college, that's the electronic kind of grade book or electronic repository for documentation. So Emory's IT department starts to see these requests from an unknown third party that are trying to access Canvas, which is the LMS that, according to the document, that Emory uses. So what the IT department does is the IT department then turns off the student's ability to generate these tokens. Now, in my case, my students need these tokens to go through an approved third-party vendor to link the third party's website to to our LMS. And so this is something that is allowed, but it becomes very, very pretty much illegal to access a computer system that you are not legally allowed to access. And this is what happens as alleged by the lawsuit. So unknown student number one apparently is very tech savvy or knows someone that's tech savvy. And what they have begun to do is they have begun to link to link 8Ball to the school's LMS. So they get them to talk to each other. Now, it's important to note that this was something that was proposed during the pitch competition. Keyword proposed. And I know a lot of people live in this world where it's better to ask for forgiveness and permission, but as you can probably guess, this isn't one of those times. So unknown student one has the ability, or the ability to means the something, to start to link these two together. Now, here's the thing about LMSs and why schools protect LMSs so ridiculously vigorously. Back in, I believe it was the 70s, the United States passed the family, it's FERPA, and I can't remember what it is, but just Google it. The Family Education Rights Privacy Act, there it is. Again, this is kind of a hot take because there's so much going on. So back in the 70s, the government passes the Family Education Rights Privacy Act. And what it does is it controls who educational entities can release data to. This is why, if you remember your kid, your infamous permanent record, it's just not out on the streets. It's not public domain. But schools now, the last thing that you want, if you're a school tied to you, is a data breach. And so schools are very, very careful about how they protect students' data. So now if you're a college student, you know this, the rise of two-factor authentication, just having a password isn't enough. Even myself as an instructor, I have to go through multiple layers of two-factor authentication just to get through the multiple systems that I deal with in my everyday life. So that kind of gives you an idea of how this is kind of starting to go wrong. So unknown student one has devised a way that students can allegedly pull information straight from the LMS straight onto 8Ball's server. Now, the problem is that that's going to put the university on the hook if something happens to 8Ball's server. Now, as we push forward through the story, and it's 26 pages, just the main lawsuit itself is 26 pages. As we push forward through the story, what we find out is that unknown student one figures out, or hears kind of through the grapevine, that the university has disabled the student's ability to generate user access tokens. So unknown student one develops a workaround to literally work around that and still access the system. So all of this is happening sometime in October of 2023. At the end of October 2023, I guess IT kind of figures out what's going on, and they issue a code of conduct violation against unknown student number one. And I think that happens off the top of my head around the 30th of October 2023. So the code of conduct violation is basically saying that you are prohibited from accessing the LMS, and you're still doing it. So that's obviously a code of conduct violation. Now, but up until like November 2nd, Mr. Craver had been actively kind of marketing, and apparently marketed to a psych class. But again, everyone outside of kind of the IT community apparently doesn't realize what's going on. And everything is good because Emory is very happy, and they had been pushing, according to the document, responsible use of AI and developing AI applications kind of, in this campus environment. But at some point, Mr. Craver gets sucked into all of this, and then the school first they issue an honor code violation, basically saying that 8Ball can be used for cheating, and then it comes out later on that they issue the code of conduct violation for also the data breach, not the data breach, but the unauthorized access into the LMS. So why is this important? This is important for the simple fact that all you read in the media is talking about AI system, student develops AI, used for cheating, gets shut down by the university. That's part of the story, but that's not the real issue here. This is not really the bigger issue. Now, with Emory being a private institution and disciplinary records being something that generally never, ever, ever see the light of day, we'll probably never really know the true story, the real nature of what's going on with this. But the take-home lesson is that with things that are federally protected, like your grades, your private information, things like that, universities are going to go to great lengths to protect those. And this is not some place where you want to ask for forgiveness instead of permission, because since the university can't afford to have to deal with the fallout from a data breach, they are not going to be in any way lenient if they find out that somebody is not only attempting to access the LMS, but once one safeguard is initiated, they build a workaround to continue to access the LMS. So that's just not something that universities are going to abide. But again, everyone is so focused on AI, and AI in education is becoming such a hot button issue. There have been so many instances where students have been alleged to have cheated or, academic dishonesty, plagiarism, all because of their alleged use of AI. So that's what's going to grab the headline. But I do honestly believe the bigger issue is the fact that an LMS, there was attempted repeated access to an LMS from a third-party application that was not authorized by the university. So the fallout, one student's user access token was allegedly publicly outed, which, I don't know how much trouble you could get into for that, but just the idea that somebody kind of goes in and delves this deep without really knowing what the ramifications are, that's what's really troubling to me. Now, there's another aspect that's a little troubling as well, in that Mr. Craver, again, does not have the coding ability to do this. He's more of the marketing, the marketing drive behind the application. And there's according to the lawsuit, there are several days between when unknown student 1 is told that he's being hit with a conduct violation for accessing the LMS, and the emails that Mr. Craver sent out. I believe there's at least 3 days that between the two. And the problem with that is that allegedly it would seem like there's no conversation between unknown student 1 and Mr. Craver that says, hey, we got a problem. Simply for the fact that if there had been that communication, I don't necessarily know if Mr. Craver would have been like, hey, it's all great, I'm going to market to this psych class. It just doesn't make sense in my mind. So there's a lot of things going on in this case that are troubling with regard to student behavior. And again, it's really murky because code of conduct and honor court. It's really not like a court of law where there's a ton of established legal standards. And the fact that it's, these records are protected and it's a private institution, we may actually never know the whole story. But there are some takeaways here that I just want to share. Number one, certain things, it is much better to ask for permission. A lot of this could have probably been solved and the story would have had a much kind of happier middle, because again, we don't know the end, but had a much happier middle if there had been the permission asked to say, hey, we're ready to move on. We want to be able to tie this into the LMS. There's upside for both parties if they go about this the right way. I definitely believe lesson number 2 is you really need to be careful. College is a great time to start these business enterprises, but you definitely need to be careful with who you start these enterprises with, because I don't understand if I'm part of a business with someone that I'm assuming I'm talking to every single day, that 3 days lapse between a time where it says, hey, we got a conduct violation there, we got to shut this thing down, or I'm being told to shut this thing down. And your marketing person is still sending out emails talking about, hey, this thing is great. That's a little troubling to me. And again, I'm basing all of this off of the lawsuit. And I think the last thing that really troubles me the most is how the media has covered this, because they're looking at the AI aspect. Again, because AI is something, I'll probably get better engagement from this video just because I'm talking about AI. But AI is something that everybody is looking at and they're kind of staring at, and it's something that's going to catch your eye. But the real issue is the protection of educational records. That's the real issue. And that's what I honestly believe is why the school is taking the stance that they are. Because again, the last thing a school wants is a data breach. And if that system weren't secure, or someone were to hack into 8-ball systems, knowing that, hey, the school is probably not an easy target, let's go for the easier target that has access, I'm pretty sure the hackers are going to go after the easier target. So there's a lot of things going on here, but I definitely want you all to take away the fact that sometimes you need to ask for permission rather than forgiveness. really look at who you're getting into business with. If you're starting some little collegiate business, definitely always read between the lines when you're reading the news, especially when you have these very large corporate news entities, because you got to ask yourself what's the motivation behind the words they choose. And I think lastly, the big thing for me as a college instructor is definitely always check your primary resource materials. The primary resource material in this instance is going to be the lawsuit. That's about as much as we're going to get in terms of documents that are going to be filed. And again, we're relying on the veracity of the narrative that's given in the lawsuit, but that's going to give us the most information as to what's really going on. And personally, I kind of feel bad for Mr. Craver, because after I'm reading this lawsuit, and it's pretty obvious that he doesn't necessarily know what the capabilities, or not necessarily the capabilities, but he doesn't necessarily know how things are being done really at a very granular coding level. But I kind of get the feeling that he has been caught off guard by this, just for the lead lag time between notification and him sending out emails, and the fact that he doesn't have the capability. He doesn't have the capability to write or decipher the code. So I kind of feel bad for him in the fact that I think he's kind of I personally believe he might be getting hung out to dry. But again, when you're kind of the face of the company, you're going to be held accountable. And I believe that's kind of what's going on, is that he's being held accountable for these actions along with the other student. Whether or not he was involved in every little aspect of it, I don't know. But I definitely believe that this is not going to be the last we hear about this story. Hopefully, a resolution can be found, because he's been suspended from school, and this is interfering with just the social progress of college, his honors thesis, a lot of things going on. Thus, the remedy coming from or being sought by the lawsuit. So a lot to go on. I'm definitely going to be following this one, because as an instructor, I'm pretty invested in how AI is being used in the classroom today. So definitely stay tuned to the channel to see what is going on. Hey, if you like this type of information, please like, share, subscribe. Really looking to grow the channel, because ultimately I want this to be a place where future college students, current college students, parents of college students, those type of people can find the information that they're looking for to really help their themselves or someone they care about be successful in higher education. So I am Jason Robinson, the Unapologetic Professor, and I hope you have a wonderful day.